The fluorescent lights buzzed softly above the narrow counter of Grind and Rise, a small but bustling coffee shop tucked into the marble-lined lobby of a Manhattan skyscraper. Outside, the city was already buzzing with the usual Friday morning rush, taxis honking, heels clicking on pavement, and the distant wail of a siren weaving through the urban symphony. But inside Grind and Rise, the pace was escalating to a near frenzy. Jada West wiped a bead of sweat from her brow, her fingers moving swiftly and precisely over the espresso machine. The line stretched far past the glass display of pastries, curling like a living creature around the tables and creeping toward the revolving doors. The usual hum of casual chatter was now punctuated by impatient sighs and the clatter of mugs being slammed on counters. It wasn't supposed to be this busy today. Jada, 32, with her tightly coiled braids pulled back in a neat bun and dark eyes sharp beneath the rim of her well-worn cap, was the senior barista and, unofficially, the shift leader. She had been manning the morning rush for nearly 5 years, and she knew this lobby like the back of her hand. But this morning, something had snapped the delicate balance. Just as she handed off a steaming cappuccino to a suited man clutching a briefcase, she heard it, the sudden crash and spill of coffee grounds and a sharp curse. One of the newer baristas, Tommy, had knocked over a full pot of dark roast onto the gleaming counter and, worse, the floor. The chain reaction was immediate. Customers gasped. Some pulled back as the pungent smell of burnt coffee filled the air. Tommy's face went pale, his hands fumbling for paper towels. But the line didn't wait. Jada's mind kicked into overdrive. "All right, everyone, stay calm," she called out, voice firm but calm, rising above the mounting clamor. "Tommy, grab mop and bucket now. Mike, shift to the register. Cover it. Lila, help me with orders at table 7 and 10. Her instructions came rapid fire, each one targeted and precise. Within seconds, she was personally apologizing to a frustrated woman tapping her foot near the pastry case. "I'm so sorry for the delay, ma'am. Please accept a complimentary drink on us, on the house, for the next 10 minutes. We appreciate your patience." The woman blinked in surprise but nodded, muttering a soft, "Thank you." Jada moved quickly down the line, calling out names where she could. "Caroline, your usual latte is up next. Mike, new double espresso for table 6, right?" Caroline Foster looked up from her phone, a faint smile touching her lips. She was a familiar face, the executive assistant to the CEO of East Point Global, the multinational corporation that leased several floors of the building. Jada had noticed Caroline stopping by every morning, usually just for a quick espresso and a brief reprieve before the storm of meetings. "Thanks, Jada," Caroline said quietly, her tone appreciative despite the chaos. Behind the counter, the atmosphere was shifting. The usual chatter between baristas gave way to a focused, almost synchronized rhythm. Jada's hands were a blur, pulling shots, steaming milk, calling out orders, soothing flustered customers. Minutes passed. The line stopped growing and began to inch forward. On the stairwell landing overlooking the lobby, a tall figure watched the unfolding scene. Richard Hunter, the CTO of East Point Global, leaned casually against the railing, arms crossed. His sharp eyes followed Jada's every move, her calm under pressure, the way she orchestrated the team with quiet authority. He noted the subtle way she made eye contact with customers, the way she diffused tension with small acts of kindness. He had seen leadership before, boardroom power plays, polished presentations, sharp suits, and rehearsed speeches. But this was something different. This was raw, immediate, authentic. Jada wasn't just managing a coffee shop, she was managing chaos. "Who is that woman?" Richard asked his assistant, his voice low but urgent. "Her name's Jada West," the assistant replied after a quick search on her phone. "Senior barista. She's been here for a few years. Seems like she's the one keeping things together." Richard nodded slowly. "Set up a meeting with her. I want to know her story." Back inside, the crescendo of noise was finally breaking into a harmonious flow. Orders were being delivered on time. Complaints turned into smiles, and even a few customers broke into spontaneous applause. Jada took a breath, feeling the familiar rush of adrenaline fade into satisfaction. She wiped down the counter, glanced at her team, and allowed herself a small smile. They had survived the storm, but she knew this was just the beginning. The city outside the towering glass windows of East Point Global was alive with the steady hum of midday traffic. Inside the lobby, a small crowd of suited professionals drifted between meetings and coffee runs, their conversations blending into an indistinct background noise. But Jada West's attention was focused on her phone screen, where an unexpected notification glowed softly in the LinkedIn app. Richard Hunter, East Point Global, had sent her a connection request with a brief message. "Coffee and conversation? I'd like to discuss an opportunity." For a moment, Jada stared at the screen in disbelief. Was this some kind of mistake? A prank? She had learned over the years to expect little beyond her immediate world behind the coffee counter. But the message was real. The next morning, she stood just inside the lobby of East Point Global, the polished marble floor cool beneath her sneakers. She wore her usual work attire, a simple black shirt, jeans, and the grind and rise apron she'd forgotten to take off yesterday, tied loosely around her waist. Her nerves buzzed quietly under her calm exterior as she scanned the room for the man who'd changed the rhythm of her week. Richard Hunter appeared smoothly from the elevators, his tailored suit and confident stride filling the space with an unmistakable presence. He smiled warmly as he approached. "Jada West," he said, extending a hand. "Thank you for meeting me." "Mr. Hunter," she replied, shaking his hand firmly. "I wasn't expecting this." "Neither was I, in some ways," he admitted. "But I saw what you did yesterday morning. That kind of leadership under pressure, it's rare. It's exactly what East Point Global needs." He led her to a small, informal meeting room tucked away behind the corporate hustle. The walls were lined with a whiteboard scribbled with ideas, and the air smelled faintly of fresh coffee. A small nod, perhaps, to her origins. "We're launching a new department focused entirely on improving the customer experience across all our divisions," Richard explained. "It's a challenge, lots of chaos, lots of moving parts. And frankly, we need someone who knows how to thrive in those conditions." Jada listened, skeptical, but intrigued. "I'm not sure someone like me fits in a place like this," she said honestly. "I've worked in coffee shops and small teams. I know how to manage people and processes there. But a department, a corporation, that's a whole other world." Richard smiled. "But you've already proven you can handle the chaos. Tell me your story." Jada took a deep breath, the words flowing more easily than she expected. "I grew up in Atlanta. My mom got sick when I was in college. I was studying management, but had to drop out to take care of her and my little sister. So I started working at coffee shops to pay the bills. Her voice softened. It wasn't glamorous. Most days felt like running in place. But I never stopped thinking about how to make things better, how to organize, train, improve. I wrote down processes, coached new baristas, and tried to lead without a title. Richard nodded thoughtfully. Sounds like you were already managing a team, even if unofficially. Exactly, she said. It's not about a fancy office or a corner desk. It's about understanding people, knowing what they need, and helping them work together. That's leadership to me. He leaned forward. If I gave you a team, real resources, and authority, what would you do? Jada hesitated, then smiled faintly. I'd do what I've been doing all along. Listen, organize. Make sure everyone knows their part and feels valued. Chaos is just a problem waiting for a plan. Richard chuckled. I like your style. Here's what I'm thinking. A week-long trial. Come work with us as an internal consultant. See what you can do. She blinked. A trial? Like a job interview, but different? Exactly. Show me your vision, your methods. No corporate fluff. Just results. Jada felt a mixture of excitement and doubt swirling inside her. This was an opportunity she had never dared to imagine, but the stakes were high. Could she really step out of the coffee shop and into a boardroom filled with suits and agendas? She nodded slowly. All right, I'll do it. Richard stood and extended his hand once more. Welcome aboard, Jada West. As she left the meeting room, her phone buzzed with a text from Caroline Foster. Saw the news. Proud of you. Jada smiled, the weight of possibility settling over her. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, she felt ready to lead. The hum of fluorescent lights and the faint clicking of keyboards filled the open office space of East Point Global's Customer Experience Division. Jada West sat quietly at a corner desk, the humbling anonymity of a new environment settling over her. Gone was the familiar aroma of fresh espresso. Instead, the sterile scent of office air conditioning wrapped around her. It had been 3 days since Richard Hunter had welcomed her for the trial period as an internal consultant. She was shadowing teams, listening carefully, and slowly learning the pulse of the corporate world. A place that moved fast, but not always well. The cacophony she had tamed at Grind and Rise was now a maze of miscommunication and siloed departments. Emails slipped through cracks, urgent issues got lost, and employees juggled competing priorities without clear guidance. Jada's notebook was already filled with observations, ideas, and a growing plan. Today, she was going to propose her first change. At the morning stand-up, she suggested introducing a daily 5-minute check-in, a simple alignment meeting at the start of each shift to share priorities and flag any immediate issues. The room was quiet, then a few nods, but skepticism lurked just beneath the surface. Daily meetings? Muttered one manager, Andrew, a tall man with a sharp gaze that seemed to size Jada up as if she were an outsider poking around in his territory. Sounds like micromanagement to me. Jada met his gaze steadily. It's not about micromanaging, it's about communication. We all want the same thing. Smoother processes, fewer mistakes. Andrew's smirk lingered. And you think a barista's approach to coffee orders translates to corporate strategy? The room tensed. A few exchanged glances, unsure where the conversation would go. Jada's heart quickened, but she kept her voice calm and clear. Leadership isn't about titles or backgrounds. It's about people. I've seen how simple changes can make chaos manageable in a coffee shop or a corporation. Richard sat quietly at the back of the room, watching intently. Over the next days, Jada worked to build bridges, quietly gathering small wins. She implemented a streamlined alert system for cross-department communications. She coached team leads on empathetic listening. Slowly, the fog of confusion began to lift. One afternoon, Andrew confronted her in the hallway. "I didn't expect you to last this long," he said gruffly. Jada smiled. "Neither did I." He chuckled, a hint of respect in his tone. "Maybe you do have something to teach us." The moment was small, but it marked a shift. At the end of the week, Richard called a meeting with all department heads. "I want to thank everyone for their openness during this trial period," he began, voice firm and clear. But one person stood out. Someone who didn't just observe problems but brought solutions, who led without arrogance and showed real vision. He gestured to Jada. "Jada West will be our new Director of Customer Experience Initiatives." The room was silent. Then a slow building applause filled the space. Caroline Foster stood and smiled warmly. "You were our backbone long before we realized it." Jada felt a wave of emotion rise. She looked around the room. The skeptical faces, the tentative smiles, the growing respect, and knew this was the moment she had earned. That evening she returned to Grind and Rise one last time. The familiar chime of the doorbell welcomed her as she stepped inside. Her teammates gathered around, eyes wide with pride and surprise. Jada removed her apron slowly, folding it carefully. "You taught me how to lead without a title," she said softly. "Now, with a title, I'm still proud to be part of this team." Her voice cracked with gratitude. In that small coffee shop, amid the scent of espresso and warm memories, Jada West embraced her new beginning, a leader forged in the fires of chaos, ready to change the world one customer experience at a time.